The Man from Snowy River by Banjo Paterson. There was movement at the station, for the word had passed around that the colt from Old Regret had got away and had joined the wild bush horses. He was worth £1,000, so all the cracks had gathered to the fray. All the tried and noted riders from stations near and far had mustered at the homestead overnight, for the bushmen love hard riding where the wild bush horses are, and the stock horse snuffed the battle with delight. There was Harrison, who'd made his pile when Pardon won the cup, the old man with his hair as white as snow, but few could ride beside him. When his blood was fairly up, he would go wherever horse and man could go. And Clancy of the Overflow came down to lend a hand. No better horseman ever held the reins, and never horse could throw him while the saddle girth would stand. He'd learnt to ride while droving on the plains. And one was there, a stripling, on a small and weedy beast. He was something like a racehorse, undersized. There was a touch of Timor pony and 3 parts thoroughbred at least, such as are by mountain horsemen prized. He was hard and tough and wiry, just the sort that won't say die. There was courage in his quick and eager tread, and he wore the badge of gameness in his bright and fiery eye, and the proud and lofty carriage of his head. And yet, so slight and weedy, one would doubt his power to stay. The old man said, "That horse'll never do for a long and tiring gallop, lad. You better stop away. Those hills are much too rough for such as you." So he waited, sad and wistful. Only Clancy stood his friend. "I think we ought to let him come," he said. "I warrant he'll be with us when he's wanted, at the end. His horse and he are mountain bred. He hails from Snowy River, up by Kosciuszko's side, where the hills are twice as steep and twice as rough, where the horse's hoof strikes firelight from the flintstones every stride. The man who holds his own is good enough. And the Snowy River riders in the mountains make their home, where the river runs those giant hills between. I've seen full many horsemen since I first commenced to roam, and nowhere yet such horsemen have I seen." So he went. They found the horses down by the big mimosa clump. They raced away towards the mountain brow. The old man gave his orders. "Boys, go at 'em from the jump. No use to try for fancy riding now. Clancy, you must wheel them. Try and wheel them to the right. Ride boldly, lad, and never fear the spills, for there never yet was rider that could keep the mob in sight, if once they gain the shelter of those hills." So Clancy rode to wheel them. He was racing from the wing where the best and boldest riders take their place, and he raced his stock horse past them, and he made the rangers ring with the stock whip as he met them face to face. They halted for a moment as he swung that dreaded lash, but they saw their well-loved mountain full in view, and they charged beneath the stock whip with a sharp and sudden dash, and off into the mountain scrub they flew. And quickly horsemen followed where the gorges deep and black resounded to the thunder of their tread, and the stock whips whooped the echoes, and they fiercely answered back from the cliffs and crags that beetled overhead, and upwards, ever upwards, those wild horses held their way while the mountain ash and Carajung grew wide. And the old man muttered fiercely, "We may bid them of good day. No man can hold them down the other side." When they met the mountain's summit, even Clancy took a pall. It well might make the boldest hold their breath. The wild hop scrub grew thickly, and the hidden ground was full of wombat holes, and any slip was death. But the man from Snowy River let the pony have his head. He swung his stock whip round and gave a cheer, and he raced him down the mountain like a torrent down its bed, while the others stood and watched in very fear. He sent the flintstones flying, but the pony kept his feet. He cleared the fallen timber in his stride, and the man from Snowy River never shifted in his seat. It was grand to see that mountain horseman ride through the stringy barks and saplings on that rough and broken ground. Down the hillside at a racing pace he went, and he never drew bridle till he landed safe and sound at the bottom of the terrible descent. He was well amongst the horses as they climbed a further hill. Those watching from the mountains standing mute saw him ply the stock whip fiercely, and he was well amongst them still as he raced across a clearing in pursuit. They lost him for a moment where two mountain gullies met in the ranges, but a final glimpse reveals on a dim and distant hillside those wild horses racing yet, with the man from Snowy River at their heels. He rode 'em single-handed till their sides were white with foam. He followed like a bloodhound on their tracks till they halted, coward and beaten, and he turned their heads for home. And alone and unassisted brought them back. His hardy mountain pony could scarcely raise a trot. He was blood from hip to shoulder from the spur, but his pluck was yet undaunted and his courage fiery hot, for never yet was mountain horse a cur. And down by Kosciuszko, where the pine-clad ridges raise their torn and rugged battlements on high, where the air is clear as crystal and the white stars fairly blaze at midnight in the cold and frosty skies, and whereabouts the overflow, the reed beds sweep and sway in the breezes, and the rolling plains are wide. The man from Snowy River is a household word today, and the stockmen tell the story of his ride.